before we get into the timeline, exactly what's going on, you read through that contract, David. Mm-hmm. You saw what it said. So can you kind of, number one, tell people what you think about the situation, surface level, and then what you were able to garner from reading that?
First of all, this is a terrible look for everyone involved. For Billy Napier as a coach and as a man, this is terrible for Florida and their football program, and I think this is bad for Jaden Rashada as well. And this is why college football fans across this country are shaking their head in disgust at the direction of the sport. It's never been because people don't want to see young men profit off of their skill sets, right? They're tired of poor leadership resulting in an unorganized product. Now, name, image, and likeness, not allowing kids to profit off of their name, image, and likeness. What's that lawsuit with the NCAA a couple years ago is really what this came down to. That was always different than pay for play, what you and I talked about. But in reality, it was never any different. So programs and coaches wanted this. They wanted to be able to recruit kids and pay them money based off their ability to perform on the field. Well, this is what we have. So a couple things stood out to me in particular. The first one is quarterback Jaden Rashada sues Florida coach Billy Napier and mega booster Hugh Hathcock. But neither of them are on this contract right here that you and I read earlier. I mean, the person mentioned here is Edward Rojas of the Gator Collective. And I think that we have some photos here that we're going to show everybody. So Edward Rojas' name is on here, which he didn't sign. So we don't even have a countersigned version of this contract. Only Jaden Rashada's signature is on this right here. And yet Billy Napier is named in the lawsuit, meaning that he said something on that signing day guaranteeing that the boosters would come up with $1 million. They didn't. We're going to find out the details on whether or not, an oral contract in that fashion is going to be upheld in a court because, hey, a football coach lying to you, welcome to the club. If that were the case, I would be retired on a beach right now. And the second thing that stood out to me is in order for Jaden Rashada to sign this deal, he first had to back out of his agreement with Miami. So he had a $9.5 million NIL deal with Miami that he backed out of. So he was fine not honoring his commitment to Miami, but has a problem with Florida not honoring their commitment to him, even though John Ruiz of the Life Wallet, who you were telling me about, says that Life Wallet never had a $9.5 million NIL deal with Jaden Rashada at Miami. So, look, our fantasy football league right now has more structure than college football, and to me, it's unacceptable.
I do think Miami did get paid $150,000 from the Florida guy.
No, well, yeah, this is where
him backing out.
This is where it gets convoluted. Basically, Jaden Rashada is pissed, and the way that I look at it is, you talked me out of leaving this place saying you were going to pay me more money than this place would pay me. You told me that I'm going to go to this timeline, I was going to get a certain amount of money by December 5th. So I decommit from Miami, I flip to Florida. You guys are going to pay me through a 4-year span. That agreement said $13.85 million. And I want to make this point right now. There is not a high school senior in the sport of football that is worth $14 million of NIL money coming out of high school. Notice I said high school recruit. I put this out on social media, and so people were like, well, Johnny Manziel made $300 million for Texas A&M. That's not what I'm talking about.
$300 million?
Yeah, even if that number was half of that. If Johnny Manziel said, you know what, if y'all pay me $13 million, I'll come back for my last year at A&M, I think that's worth it. Not the 5-star coming out of high school, because it's a proven commodity. Why do you think that second contract in the NFL is so much more valuable than the first contract? Because you're a proven commodity. Why do you think that people get paid more NIL money out of the transfer portal than out of high school? Because you're a proven commodity. I know what Cam Ward's going to do. I don't know what this player's going to do. If Cam Newton in 2010 after the season said, if Auburn pays me $13 million, I will be the quarterback my senior year at Auburn in 2011. He is worth that $13 million. Florida screwed this thing up by offering him that amount of money in the first place. But I do, David, before we get to blanks, I want to go through this timeline too. Do you think because this was let out of the box, NIL and transfer portal and all that stuff was let out of the box like this, that this was just bound to happen and it's almost necessary so we can set some sort of precedent so we could get some sort of rules for college football? It's like the Constitution. They had a debate. You had to have people get upset. Well, I counter this with that. We're molding this ball of clay, and maybe the final product will be buttoned up and will be structured because they didn't do it at the beginning.
Yes, it was always bound to happen. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised that it didn't happen before, even when this when these actions were illegal, right? And I mean, you guys coach college football. I mean, you've seen guys get paid. Now, it wasn't as prevalent as a lot of people make it out to be. I didn't get paid any money to go to the University of Michigan. My roommates and most of my teammates never brought any of this up before. But I am surprised, even though it was an illegal action before, you never had a kid say, but wait, my coach said this and was willing to fall on his own sword in order to take it to court, or maybe a coach the other way. It would have been tougher for the program.
Well, me and you were batting this around before the show, is that back in the day when you'd say, all right, I'm going on 5 official visits. If I got paid as a recruit coming out, if I went to 5 different places and they each gave me a certain amount of money, this was before NIL and any of that was legal, and I only can choose one school, those other 4 schools that pay me, they can't do anything about it. I've already got the money. What are they going to do? Go tell the NCAA, hey, we paid this recruit illegally and he didn't come to our school. We should get our money back. No, they'd end up getting probation and getting penalized and getting in all type of trouble for that. Then on the other side, if a school promised a recruit, hey, if you sign with us, we'll pay you this amount of money, and then they didn't do it when he signed, what's that recruit going to do? Go to the NCAA and be like, they promised to illegally pay me and make me ineligible. Never forget, these are the same people that took Reggie Bush's Heisman away, all right, because his mom got a house at USC. So back in the day, you could get away with all this tomfoolery because it wasn't legal and it wasn't out in the open. But Blaine, I put out also on social media, we literally titled the episode, Should Florida Fans Panic? And I had some Florida fans that are like, why should we panic? This really has nothing to do with us as the program. It's just Billy Napier. The street rep for recruiting matters. You've been in that living room. These players talk. These families talk. This is a bad look. And if one of them says something stinks, there's 25 other ones that are going to plug their nose and walk their ass out of the room.
Yeah, what hurts you worse? Recruits finding out about this and it hurts you for a couple of years, or Billy Napier doing somewhat good and you keeping him and then ruining your program for the next 3 years? I think this is good for Florida. I really do. I think this opens the door for you to fire Billy Napier in the upcoming games. I think you're going to lose early. I think you're going to get down, and I think Billy Napier's cooked. They do have a phone call of Billy Napier talking to this kid's father, saying that when he signs on signing day, he will get what, $1 million?
That's why I think Billy Napier's name is in this law.
Yeah, because he's not signed on anything. They wouldn't have brought it up if they really didn't have anything on him. They brought that phone call up. But I do think, is this bad for Billy? Sure. Is this bad for business right now for Florida? Sure. But I don't think Billy Napier should be the head coach of Florida. I don't think a guy who got drafted 5th from the quarterback position at the Colts and you won like 4 games, I don't think Billy's the guy. Even with Grant Mertz, these next 2 years, it's not going to get any easier. So from a Florida organization standpoint, I think this is great for y'all.
So what you're saying is they're going to fire him with cause, and it's because you didn't win more games.
Yes,
that's really
but they gave you got an out.
That was Jeremy Pruitt. Like, you think they
but now you have an out. You have an out. You have a sword to fall.
I don't know how much this out is going to is going to like hurt Billy Napier just from a legal standpoint.
Legally, yeah.
I will say one thing, because Jake brought up earlier, and this may have been before the show even started, about the termination language in the contract. I do want to read this really quick. Everybody bear with me. I'm reading this because of how convoluted it is, not because I expect you to be able to keep up with it, because who could? I just want to make you guys aware. This is 0.5 of the termination part of this contract, and this is all one sentence. There's no period. Collective may, in its sole and absolute discretion, terminate this agreement effective immediately upon written notice to athlete and without penalty or further obligation, including without limitation any obligation to pay the fee or any portion of the fee to the athlete in the event that the collective in its sole and absolute discretion determines or becomes aware that the existence of this agreement, entering into this agreement and or performance of this agreement in any way violates, contradicts, or otherwise affected by applicable laws, including but not limited to state-specific name, image, and likeness laws or school's policy concerning athletes' use of name, image, and likeness laws, institution rules, and or any requirements, limitations, or provisions contained in the applicable laws or institution rules of the actual or potential enforcement of either foregoing renders performance. I could keep going. It goes on for another 4 sentences before you even hit a period.
So it basically says we can terminate this and that's what happened. Here's the timeline. June 26, 2022, Jaden Rashada commits to Miami. He chose Miami over Florida, Ole Miss, LSU, and A&M. November 9th, so let's jump forward a couple months, still in 2022. Florida donor Hugh Hathcock, the Velocity Automotive guy that's named in the lawsuit, tweets out, tomorrow will be a great day for Gator fans. The next day, November 10th, Rashada signs a contract with the Gator Collective that no longer exists, I believe, that promises as much as $13.85 million over 4 years, which is so dumb. It requires Rashada to sign autographs, participate in fan engagement events, and make sponsored social media posts. And this is a big one. It also calls for a $500,000 payment due on or before December 5th, 2022. The next day, shortly after midnight Eastern time, Rashada tweets out that he's flipped his commitment from Miami to Florida. Let's go to December 5th. The deadline passes without that $500,000 payment to Rashada. The next day, the Gator Collective terminates, like you just read, their contract with Rashada. 15 days later, December 21st, 2022, Rashada signs the NLI with Florida. That's after Billy Napier called him and said, we're going to wire you $1 million. This guy's on a plane right now.
He didn't say we are. He said have faith in the Florida Booster Club.
Have faith in the Florida Booster Club. They're going to pay you $1 million. This is what Blaine was talking about. So then January 10th, Rashada doesn't report to Gainesville on move-in day for early enrollees. January 20th, Florida releases Rashada from his NLI. February 1st, he goes to Arizona State. Then, fast forward all the way to April 18th, of 2024, Rashada hops in the portal. 7 days later, he commits to Georgia. And then now today, May 21st, he files a federal lawsuit alleging fraud against Florida coach Billy Napier, former Gators recruiting staffer Marcus Castro-Walker, Hathcock, and Velocity Automotive, which is the company Hathcock sold in 2023. This goes back to what I said. If I'm Jaden Rashada, especially after having read that contract and the termination clause, you need to hope Florida balls out. You need to hope they ball out and they keep Billy, because this thing will be settled quicker than the people that got on the Oregon Trail and took their ass
right
out
here,
there.
The Gator Collective, which is not signed, but the parts for it to sign, the Gator Collective, Edward Rojas. So Hathcock, Billy Napier, or the Velocity Automotive, is that what you said? None of them are even on this contract right here, which is what guaranteed him the $13.85
So it's a promise ring. And I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know what's verbally binding and how all this stuff works. Maybe somebody in the chat can help us out. But it's a bad look overall for Billy Napier.
One thing to maybe keep an eye on, and again, everyone's going to be a lawyer today, especially in the state of Florida, but unless you've passed the bar exam in Florida, I don't really care too much what your thoughts are, because every state has different laws. One term that's going to be interesting if it comes up or not is undue influence, right? Because coaches can say anything to you to get you to sign there, and football coaches lie. I'm sorry, they lied to me, they lie to everybody. Yeah. Undue influence, like in the moment right before signing day to get a kid to sign, will the court determine that the head football coach at Florida, Billy Napier, have undue influence, and that's what got this kid to sign, and that's going to...
There's a difference between what number I'm going to getting promised and getting promised $500,000.
Well, it's just, there's so much going on here. We're going to continue to break it down. This is going to be a story that keeps going on. All right, let's get to the Booster Club.
All right, chat, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you donate, it's on topic. It will get read. All donations will get read regardless. We want to start off with the Sauce King, also known as the King of Sauce. Hashtag Ask the Boys. Do you guys think that when a player transfers schools, they opt out of any and all NIL deals they made unless they move schools in the same state?
See, this is where, and Hugh Freeze has talked about this at Auburn, these contracts, these NIL contracts, need to be two-sided. They can't just be one side. There's no other business where the contracts are all one-sided. All the stuff to gain from the person, and there's no consequences for breaching the contract. If you sign an NIL deal, I don't care if it's with a collective that's attached to a school or if it's a landscaping company that's attached to the school. If you don't stay a certain amount of time, or you don't fulfill your obligations, or you have a 2-year deal and you leave to transfer to West Virginia after 1 year, you should have to pay back. It should be a breach of contract, any of that money that you've gotten. And until these contracts are buttoned up on both sides and there's consequences for both sides not doing what they're supposed to do, it's going to continue to be a mess. I can't believe we live in a world right now that doesn't operate like that. And you know what? At the end of the day, it's a good life lesson for young people. In the real world, the way that business works, you want it in the business, there's two sides of the business, buddy. You got to do what you're supposed to do. They've got to do what they're supposed to do. And if you don't, you pay back what you were given. I think that's the only way to do it.
This is how this particular contract, again, this is all we have in front of us, but maybe it's a template that a lot of these collectives are using moving forward. It says the term of this agreement will commence on the effective date. This was December 31st, 2026. or that's when it will expire, unless otherwise terminated in accordance with this agreement. The agreement can be renewed or extended, but under no circumstance shall the term extend beyond athletes' participation in an athletic program at a post-secondary educational institution, or if they no longer live in Gainesville, Florida.
So if you move out of Gainesville and you don't go to Florida, this thing is done. There's no extending it, right? There's no adding to it. I wonder if that means that there's a breach where you have to pay back if there's a penalty or anything in there.
And now what you were saying, so this guy, Hathcock, paid Rashada $150,000 supposedly to get out of Miami, which again, so $150,000 to be able to get out of the contract that he already signed with Miami that was supposedly worth $9.5 million, which the collective is saying is not true.
This is starting to smell like a whodunit. Like,
and it doesn't help that Old Boys transferred a couple times.
It doesn't help.
And,
But also, it does help that he is playing for Kirby Smart in Georgia, because I don't think they would take on a problematic player.
They said that Kirby.
They said Florida.
They said that Kirby gave his blessing.
Which I have two thoughts on. Obviously, everybody can make fun of that situation. Well, of course, the head coach at Georgia is going to give the go-ahead for a player to sue the head coach at their biggest rival, Florida. But also, Kirby Smart doesn't want any distractions.
No.
Okay? So I don't think he would give his blessing unless his team legitimately looked over all this stuff and said, we think you have a case.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Either that or he can't really tell him what to do legally. So he said, look, do what you feel like's in your best interest. I got nothing to do with it. I got a football team to coach. Maybe that's the way they took it as his blessing. But speaking of Jesse Simonton, who we're going to bring on here in about 12 minutes, he had a great tweet. He said, it's not lost on me the irony that Florida's head coach is now getting sued by the current backup quarterback at Georgia, and they can face no NCAA penalties because Tennessee won a lawsuit against the NCAA earlier in the year. It's just an old SEC East.
Meanwhile, the Big Ten commissioner is suspending Jim Harbaugh.
It's incredible.
Let's go to Justin Hatton. What's up, Justin? Rashada was getting bad advice. Florida tried to renegotiate after the big booster backed out. The Rashada camp threw a fit and ended up with virtually no NIL. It's just dumb the more you think about it.
Well, it's dumb all the way around. Offering a high school senior, I don't care if it's over a 4-year career or a one-year term, almost $14 million to me is asinine. It's insane. And it makes me really worry about everything else that's going on at Florida. To be honest with you, up until this point, I was just worried about y'all not putting 2 guys on punt return on 4th and 4 with the same number jersey on, giving the other offensive first down. Now it seems like there was just a bunch of dysfunction, a lot of smoke, promises that were made, people getting their feelings hurt. Either way, this is why we led the show with how this affects Florida. Everybody's talking about the substance of who's going to win the case or who's in the right in the case. Well, at the end of the day, if I'm a Florida fan, that's going to be what it's going to be. I'm more worried about our program going forward. How is this going to affect the team that I love the most? And I don't think enough people.
You look like a liar and you look like you're stupid, because obviously this is what you did. You came up with a plan to get this quarterback. You paid $150,000 for a guy to flip who never took a snap for you, who's now suing you, and now he's going to play at an opposite SEC.
If this was Cam Ward, I could understand it. If this was Cam Ward going to Florida and they're like, we're going to pay you this amount of money, I'd understand it. If it was Riley Leonard, I would understand it.
That's just
I do not understand. It is a lot, but I can understand it more than with a high school senior.
So let me ask you both this question then. So the deal that Rashada had with Miami supposedly was worth $9.5 million, right? So with that, and then to get out of it, they said the Florida Booster Club member paid $150,000
to Rashada to pay money.
And that was to John Ruiz, right? John Ruiz.
Lifelong.
So do you think that deal was real? Because $9.5 million, again, this is where a lot of this becomes problematic. You're signing an NIL collective before you even sign your national letter of intent?
David,
how does that not be a requirement to sign the NIL deal? The NIL for the NLI, I don't know.
It's a Jackson Pollock painting, dog. It's everywhere. No, everybody sees something different when they look at this NIL. Like, everybody sees something different.
Who do you think's being honest in this situation? That there was really a $9.5 million NIL agreement for a 4-year tenure at Miami, and Jaden Rashada is being honest about that, and that Ruiz is just saying no so that they don't have to up the price that they're going to have to pay for further recruits? Or was that deal not in place?
Well, to me, it would all be hearsay because I wasn't there. But I can look at it from multiple angles. One, I think Ruiz would say no, not just because of the reason you just listed out, but hey, I don't want to make it seem like we got outbid on a recruit that we lost to Florida. Because of Florida's, it may be a little bit of an ego. It's a little bit purse, as Deion Sanders would say. But as far as I can tell, that deal was real. It's listed in the contract, the payments of that amount of money up to $13.85 million as long as so. Yeah. If that one's real,
it's hard.
And you paid that $150 to get out of the other one, I'm just following the bouncing ball, so I feel like the other one's real.
Well, when you talk about the embarrassment of getting outbid, if this is the strategy, everyone could always get outbid. What if Florida State enters at the 11th hour and says, no, we're going to offer $17 million, but really it's only going to cost us $150,000.
Well, it's like the person at
It's
like the person at the auction that maybe doesn't want the thing, but wants somebody else to pay a lot for it. So they bid up knowing they're going to get outbid at the end. Like, it's a game. Like, I think this is all a game. But it's a Marty Huggins bring your broom
situation. Get the broom situation.
All right, we got Jesse Simonton coming on here in a minute. We're going to get to this Celtics-Pacers game here in a little bit, but let's stay in the Booster Club because we're bringing him on in 3 minutes.
All right, let's go to the Truffle Butter Burglar. Other recruits can see that Rashada is a money-hungry narcissist, brat, who hasn't fit in any of the locker rooms he's been in and has opted out of multiple deals. It just feels like a clown move to me.
Again, there will be some of that, but I'm telling you right now, the way this works, most people are going to look and say, if there's any question, to me it's like, is the milk spoiled or not? It's like, when you get the milk and it may be on the expiration date or maybe a day after and you're like, all right, I'm going to smell it. If it even smells funny a little bit, I'm not drinking it. I'm not taking a chance. If I'm a recruit looking at Florida right now that's got Georgia and Bama and USC and Oregon, all these other ones, I'm not even going to smell the milk. I'm just throwing it away. Whether Rashada's right, whether Florida's right, I don't want to be involved in this, right? So that's where I think the biggest effect in recruiting is going to come in. That's the biggest problem that you're going to face is I'd rather not touch it. Why would I not just go to Georgia and not have to worry about this? And don't think for a second that Tennessee, even though they just got done with their stuff, and Alabama and Florida State and Texas, they will use whatever against whoever. It does not matter. This will be used in recruiting. They'll be like, it's amazing. You don't hear about this at Texas. You don't hear about this at Georgia, right? You don't hear about this at other places. Why would you even risk it? So I just think for Florida overall, it's a bad look. Hey, YouTube, what's up? Appreciate you stopping by. I know you guys are loving our new time. We are too. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Keep sharing the show. We really, really appreciate it.